Most anxiety comes from one hidden habit: tying your peace to outcomes you cannot control. You wake up worrying about results. You measure your worth by achievements. You fear failure before it arrives. You rehearse conversations that haven't happened. You suffer futures that never come. And slowly, the mind forgets how to simply exist without negotiation. The Stoics saw this clearly. They understood that anxiety is not caused by events, but by attachment to what events should be. When expectation rules the mind, peace becomes conditional. When outcomes decide your emotional state, you live as a servant to chance. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire where plagues spread, wars erupted, and betrayals were common. Yet he wrote calmly to himself, "Do your duty, release the result." Not because results do not matter, but because they never belong fully to you. Effort is yours. Outcome is not. Modern psychology confirms the same truth. Anxiety is the mind's attempt to control uncertainty. The brain simulates possible futures to feel prepared. But when preparation becomes obsession, imagination becomes torture. Detaching from outcomes ends this loop. To detach does not mean to stop caring. It means to care without clinging, to act without gripping, to commit without demanding guarantees. This is emotional maturity. This is inner adulthood. Most people confuse ambition with attachment. They believe letting go of outcomes means losing drive. But the opposite happens. When you release outcome obsession, energy returns to action. You become more effective because you are no longer afraid. A musician who plays only to impress tightens. A musician who plays for the love of sound flows. A writer who writes only for success strains. A writer who writes for the craft deepens. Detachment unlocks mastery. Epictetus taught that you should not wish events to happen as you want, but want events to happen as they do. This is not passive resignation. It is intelligent cooperation with reality. Resistance creates anxiety. Acceptance creates power. Picture a river. When you try to hold water, it escapes. When you let it flow, it carries you forward. Outcomes are water. Effort is swimming. Clinging drowns you. Flowing moves you. The modern world trains outcome, addiction, grades, rankings, metrics, likes, followers, numbers. Every system reinforces external measurement. Over time, identity fuses with performance. When results fluctuate, self-worth collapses. Detachment breaks this fusion. You become larger than any success or failure. You are the one who acts, not the result that appears. Psychologically, this creates resilience. When failure occurs, you learn. When success arrives, you enjoy. But neither defines you. You remain steady. This steadiness is what the Stoics called ataraxia, inner tranquility, not excitement, not numbness, but quiet confidence that remains unchanged by circumstance. Most people live like gamblers. Every outcome feels like a win or loss of self. The Stoic lives like an architect. He builds, adjusts, improves, but never mistakes the building for his being. Detaching from outcomes also ends comparison. You stop measuring your progress against others because your worth is no longer scoreboard-based. You return to your own lane, your own pace, your own path. This alone dissolves enormous anxiety, because most pressure is borrowed. Released outcomes return borrowed pressure to the world. Neuroscience shows that when we focus on process rather than result, dopamine systems stabilize. Motivation becomes sustainable. Burnout decreases. Satisfaction increases. The Stoics practiced this long before laboratories existed. They asked each morning, "What is my duty today?" Not what will I get, not how will I be praised. Simply what must be done. This clarity freed them from mental noise. In your life, detachment begins in small choices. Doing good work without checking immediate feedback. helping without needing recognition, speaking truth without needing agreement. At first, the ego protests. It craves reward. But slowly, a deeper satisfaction appears, the quiet pride of integrity, the calm joy of effort. Detachment also protects love. When you love without clinging, relationships breathe. When you demand outcomes, love suffocates. The Stoics knew that even loved ones are mortal, changeable, free. To love fully is to love without possession. Seneca wrote that we must love in such a way that we are ready to lose what we love. Not because loss is desired, but because reality allows no permanent guarantees. This mindset does not make love colder. It makes it purer, more present, less fearful, less controlling. Most anxiety in relationships comes from trying to control outcomes. Will they stay? Will they change? Will they betray? Detachment answers, love now, act well now, release tomorrow. This approach creates peace. Detachment also transforms ambition. You still set goals. You still plan. But you hold plans lightly. You adapt quickly. You recover faster. You move forward instead of collapsing. Think of a tree in the wind. Rigid branches snap. Flexible branches bend and survive. Detachment is flexibility of mind. In ancient warfare, generals planned battles carefully, yet expected plans to change. They acted decisively but remained adaptable. Outcome obsession loses wars. Adaptive action wins them. Your life is the same battlefield. Plans matter. Outcomes shift. The calm strategist prevails. When you practice detachment, even time feels different. You stop racing toward future achievements. You live in present action. You enjoy the building itself, not only the finished structure. This ends the chronic feeling of being late, because there is no finish line controlling your worth. Detachment also refines decision-making. When you are not attached to being right, you learn faster. When you are not attached to winning, you negotiate better. When you are not attached to control, you influence more. This paradox is ancient wisdom. The less you grasp, the more you hold. The Stoics summarized it simply: focus on what is in your control, release what is not. Your effort is yours. Your intention is yours. Your character is yours. Outcomes belong to fate, chance, and collective forces. This realization removes the weight of the world from your shoulders. You still act, but you no longer carry impossible burdens. In a noisy, anxious culture, the detached mind becomes rare. People will feel your steadiness. They will trust your clarity. They will seek your counsel, not because you chase authority, but because peace attracts. This is the first half of the teaching, the foundation of outcome detachment. In the next part, we enter the daily practices: how to train detachment, how to dissolve anxiety, how to live fully without clinging, how to act with precision and release the rest. Detachment becomes real not when life is easy, but when life tests you, when a plan fails, when someone leaves, when money tightens, when progress slows. The anxious mind asks, why is this happening to me? The detached mind asks, what is mine to do next? This single shift changes everything. The Stoics practice premeditation of adversity. They imagine loss before it arrived, not to suffer early, but to remove surprise. When hardship came, they were ready. When outcomes shifted, they adjusted. They did not collapse. They moved. Modern therapy calls this cognitive reframing. Ancient philosophy called it wisdom. Same function, different vocabulary. The ability to reinterpret events without emotional flooding. When you detach from outcomes, you stop treating life as a verdict on your worth. You stop seeing every result as a judgment. You stop personalizing randomness. This ends a massive portion of human suffering. Most people do not fear failure. They fear what failure means about them. Detachment cuts that link. Failure becomes information, not identity. A detached mind can lose money without losing dignity, can lose status without losing self, can lose comfort without losing direction. This is true freedom. You begin to notice something subtle. The more you release outcomes, the more often outcomes go well, because you are not forcing, not gripping, not desperate. You act from clarity, not fear, and clarity is effective. This is the paradox the Stoics lived by. Release control to gain power. Accept uncertainty to gain stability. Let go to move forward. Anxiety thrives on what if. Detachment thrives on even if. What if I fail? Even if I fail, I will act again. This shift alone dissolves chronic worry. Daily practice is simple. When you begin a task, say quietly, I will do my best. The result is not mine. This phrase sounds small, but repeated daily, it rebuilds your nervous system. When you send a message, detach from the reply. When you post content, detach from the metrics. When you love, detach from possession. When you plan, detach from certainty. Little by little, you reclaim your life from fear. Detachment also purifies intention. When you are not chasing outcomes, you act from inner values. You work because work is meaningful. You speak because truth matters. You help because compassion is natural, not because you need reward. This produces integrity, and integrity produces self-respect. And self-respect produces calm. This is the real source of confidence, not success, not applause, but the knowledge that you can act rightly without needing the world to confirm you. The Stoics believed character is fate, not outcome, not circumstance, character. Detach from outcomes, attach to character. Everything else follows. Over time, detachment makes you flexible. When opportunity appears, you move. When doors close, you redirect. When plans fail, you redesign. No drama, no collapse, no self-pity. This adaptability is what evolution rewards, not rigidity, not perfection, not certainty. Nature itself is detached. Seasons change. Storms pass. Leaves fall. Nothing clings. Everything moves. To live against this flow is to suffer. To move with it is to feel guided. Detachment also deepens gratitude. When you are not demanding specific results, every positive outcome feels like a gift. Not an entitlement. Joy becomes more frequent. Contentment more stable. People who cling to outcomes are rarely satisfied. There is always another goal, another fear, another comparison, another shortage. Detachment ends this hunger. It replaces hunger with sufficiency. This does not mean you stop growing. You still build, still create, still improve. But you grow from abundance, not deficiency. From curiosity, not desperation. From purpose, not pressure. When setbacks come, and they always do, detachment turns them into redirection rather than defeat. You ask, where does this lead now? What is life shaping through this? This mindset is unbreakable. The Stoics trusted that life is larger than personal preference. They did not demand that reality obey them. They learned to obey reality intelligently. This obedience was not weakness. It was harmony. A detached mind lives in harmony, with change, with uncertainty, with impermanence, with fate. And in this harmony, anxiety cannot survive. The mind no longer fights what is. The heart no longer fears what may be. The body no longer braces for imagined disaster. Everything softens. Everything steadies. Detachment also changes how you see others. You stop trying to control them, fix them, own them. You love freely. You respect autonomy. You forgive easily. You let people be who they are. This ends countless conflicts. Most arguments are outcome attachments in disguise. wanting to be right, wanting to win, wanting to be understood, wanting agreement. Detachment dissolves these demands. Peace returns. As you live this way, people feel safe around you because you do not grip, you do not pressure, you do not manipulate. You allow, and paradoxically, those who feel free around you choose you more often. This is the quiet magnetism of detachment. Over time, detachment becomes your default. You plan, you act, you release. You adjust, you remain. No anxiety, no panic, no collapse. Just movement, just flow, just presence. And then one day you realize you are no longer afraid of life, because you are no longer bargaining with it. This is the Stoic liberation. This is psychological maturity. This is inner adulthood. You still care, but you do not cling. You still act, but you do not grip. You still love, but you do not possess. And in this balance, peace becomes natural. This is the art of detaching from outcomes, the end of anxiety, the beginning of freedom. Return to this practice daily. Small releases, small surrenders, small realignments. And slowly, you will feel it. A life no longer driven by fear of results, but guided by clarity of action. That is the calm mind. That is Psychocalm.